Shalom, shalom. Good evening. Happy Father's Day to all the good fathers. Fuck the fathers that don't take care of their kids. Um, so today we're talking about Apophis. Apophis. Apep. God of the underworld, I believe. But first we're going to start off with the asteroid Apophis. Will it hit Earth? Says about the asteroids 2029 flyby. No coincidence, I just made an order from Walmart. I ordered some groceries, but one of the items was it was like a, what was it, like a Chinese, some type of little sauce. It was a little vegan chili sauce, but it was called fly something. Let's see if I can find it. But we know who Satan is, which is the Lord of Flies. Okay. So 2029, the asteroid Apophis. This artist's concept of asteroid Apophis, created by the Planetary Society, is free for media and educational use with attribution. Okay, so it is based on Travick 2014 and shape models at 3D asteroids.space. Radar measurements estimate Apophis is roughly 450 meters, 45, which represents the number for Adam, the number 9 or 6, and then 1,500 feet wide. Again, 1 plus 5, 15, and the tarot is the devil. 219 on the timer. And 170 meters or 550 feet tall. So there's the 10 and the 8, and that again equals 9. So what is Apophis? This is a near-Earth asteroid, meaning its orbit around the sun brings it within 1.3 times the distance between the sun and Earth. Its full name is Apophis 99942, okay? 999 Juice World, or in the inverse, 666. 42 equals 6, so that would be 9996 or 9999 flipped 6666. After Apophis was discovered in 2004, again 2 and 4, which is 6, the asteroid was given a 2.7% chance of hitting Earth in 2029, causing a great deal of media attention. 27 Club. The either fake deaths or real deaths of suicide by musicians because they've sold their soul to the devil and they have an appointed time to pay up by blood. So it also, for a time, had a small chance of hitting Earth in 2036. Additional observances have shown it will not hit Earth in 2029 or in 2036. So they say. Nevertheless, in 2029, Apophis will come closer to Earth than our geostationary communication satellites, likely sparking a great deal of public interest. The Planetary Society has submitted recommendations to the U.S. scientific community that identify science and outreach opportunities. We also present these recommendations at workshops and conferences. How to pronounce Apophis. Apophis is pronounced Apophis, Apophis, generally with an emphasis on the second syllable, pa, okay? So what does it mean? In Egyptian mythology, he was a serpent and the enemy of Ra, the sun god. Every night he sought to bring eternal darkness on the world before being defeated by Ra at sunrise. Who discovered him? Or the asteroid. So the asteroid was discovered on the 19th of June 2004 by Roy Tucker, David Tholen, and Fabrizio Bernardi at the Kitt Peak National Observatory in Arizona. Tucker was a 2002 grant recipient from our shoemaker Near Earth Object Grant Program, which funds advanced amateur astronomers who find, track, and characterize near Earth objects. Apophis in New York City. The asteroid would fit neatly inside the Battery, a park at the tip of Manhattan in New York City. This image shows an artist's concept of Apophis in the park to illustrate its size in comparison to the rest of the New York City skyline. The image is free for media and educational use with attribution. How big is Apophis? Like most asteroids, Apophis is too small for us to figure out its exact shape and size from Earth. Radar images have shown it measures 450 meters or 1,500 feet across its longest axis, equivalent to about 5 football fields, and taller than the Empire State Building in New York City. It is approximately 170 meters on its shortest axis. It is likely egg-shaped or even dual-lobe like Arakop, the small world NASA's New Horizons spacecraft flew past in 2019. Will Apophis hit Earth? If you're not going to be in there, turn the light off, turn the air off. Okay, so it says that not at any time soon. It definitely will miss Earth in 2029 and 2036, and radar observations of Apophis during the asteroid's flyby in March 2021 ruled out an impact for at least the next 100 years. They would like to have you believe that the apocalypse isn't coming when it's already here. The Earth has already been judged, and now we just await for the finale of the show. So, why did the probability of Apophis impact in 2029 go up before it went down to zero? Soon after its discovery, more observations of Apophis refined the asteroid's trajectory, and the range of trajectories still included Earth. More observations refined its path around the sun and excluded Earth, bringing the probability of a 2029 impact down to zero. What would happen if Apophis hit Earth? It would cause widespread destruction up to several hundred of kilometers from its impact size. The energy release would be more than 1,000 megatons of TNT, or tens to hundreds of nuclear weapons. How big was the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs? The asteroid that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs, as well as 70% of all species on Earth, was at least 10 to 15 kilometers wide. It was much larger than Apophis, though millions of people could still die if an Apophis-sized asteroid struck a major metropolitan area, i.e. New York. How close will Apophis come to Earth in 2029? On 13th of April 2029, Apophis will pass as close as 30,600 kilometers, 36 Mafia, 19,000 miles, 19 keys above the Earth. If you're superstitious, that's on Friday the 13th. Guess who's playing Jason? Come on now, let's go. How close will Apophis come to Earth in 2036? On the 30th of March 2036, Apophis will pass Earth at a much further distance, 8.4 million kilometers, 5.2 million miles. That's more than 20 miles the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Will we be able to see it? During the 2029 pass, Apophis will be visible from Europe, Africa, and Western Asia, looking like a somewhat bright star, a magnitude 3.1, moving rapidly across the sky. It will be much too far away to be visible without telescopes in 2036. Will Apophis hit our geostationary communication satellites? No, it will pass closer to Earth than some of our geostationary satellites, but its path will be inclined away from the equator and not carry it through the region these satellites occupy. So we're going to go into this and see how the as above, so below works when it comes to this Egyptian deity. 711, the imposter. Okay. So APEP, APEP, or APOP. Okay. APEP, also called APEPI or APEPI, APEPI, AAPEP, or Apophis, was the ancient Egyptian deity who embodied darkness and disorder and was thus the opponent of light and Ma'at, the order and truth. Ra was the bringer of light and hence the biggest opposer of Apep. Because Ra was the solar deity, bringer of light, and thus the upholder of Ma'at, Apep was viewed as the greatest enemy of Ra and thus was given the title enemy of Ra and also the Lord of Chaos. The Lord of Chaos was seen as a giant snake or serpent, leading to such titles as Serpent from the Nile and Evil Dragon. Some elaborations said that he stretched 16 yards in length and had a head made of flint, like Flint, Michigan, presented on Nakata the first, circa 4000 through 3550 BCE. See where bowl, now in Cairo. A snake was painted on the inside rim, combined with other desert and aquatic animals as an enemy of a deity, seemingly a solar deity, who is invisibly hunting in a big rowing vessel. The snake on the inside rim is believed to be Apep. The few descriptions of Apep's origin in myth usually demonstrate that it was born after Ra, usually from his umbilical cord. Geraldine Pinch claims that a much later creation myth explained that Apophis sprang from the saliva of the goddess Neith when she was still in the primeval waters. Her spit became a snake 120 yards long, but Apep was commonly believed to have existed from the beginning of time in the waters of Nu of primeval chaos. Tales of Apep's battles against Ra was elaborated during the New Kingdom. Storytellers said that every day Apep must lie below the horizon and not persist in the mortal kingdom. This appropriately made him a part of the underworld. In some stories, Apep waited for Ra in a western mountain called Manu, where the sun set, and in others, Apep lurked just before dawn, in the 10th region of the night. The wide range of Apep's possible locations gained him the title World Encircler. It was thought that his terrifying roar would cause the underworld to rumble. Myths sometimes say that Apep was trapped there because he had been the previous chief god overthrown by Ra, or because he was evil and had been imprisoned. The coffin text implied that Apep used a magical gaze to overwhelm Ra and his entourage. Ra was assisted by a number of defenders who traveled with him, including Set and possibly the Eye of Ra. Apep's movements were thought to cause earthquakes, and his battles with Set may have been meant to explain the origin of thunderstorms. In one account, Ra himself defeats Apep in the form of a cat, giving big Judah energy. Confirmed. Ra's victory each night was thought to be ensured by the prayers of the Egyptian priests and worshippers at temples. The Egyptians practiced a number of rituals and superstitions that were thought to ward off Apep and aid Ra in continuing his journey across the sky. In an annual rite called the Banishing of Chaos, Priests would build an effigy, sculpture, or model of a person or a deity of Apep that was thought to contain all of the evil and darkness in Egypt and burn it to protect everyone from Apep's evil for another year. Mayday, Beltane, the Wicker Man. The Egyptian priests had a detailed guide to fighting Apep referred to as the Books of Overthrowing Apep or the Book of Apophis in Greek. The chapters described a gradual process of dishonoring, dismemberment, and disposal, which include sitting upon Apep, defiling Apep with the left foot, taking a lance to smite Apep, fettering Apep, taking a knife to smite Apep, putting fire upon Apep. In addition to stories about Ra's victories, this guide had instructions for making wax models or small drawings of the serpents, which would be spat on, mutilated, and burnt whilst reciting spells that would aid Ra in killing Apep. Fearing that even the image of Apep could give power to the demon, any rendering would always include another deity to subdue the monster. As Apep was thought to live in the underworld, he was sometimes thought of as an eater of souls. Thus, the dead also needed protection, so they were sometimes buried with spells that could destroy Apep. The Book of the Dead does not frequently describe occasions when Ra defeated the chaos snake explicitly called Apep. Only Book of the Dead spells 7 and 39 can be explained as such. Okay, so this is the star system. Apep is a triple star system containing a Wolf-Rayet binary and a hot supergiant located in the constellation of Norma. Named after the serpent deity from Egyptian mythology, the star system is surrounded by a vast complex of stellar wind and cosmic dust, thrown into space by the high rotation speed of the binary's primary star and formed into a pinwheel shaped by the secondary star's influence. Ground-based studies of the system in the 2010 concluded that the system was the best known gamma ray burst progenitor candidate in the Milky Way galaxy. Apep was named by a team of astronomers led by Joseph Callingham, who's always a Hamite, of Astron, who studied the system between 2016 and 2018 and published a scientific paper on their observations. It was named after the eponymous mortal enemy of the deity of the sun, Ra, in Egyptian mythology, who was often illustrated as a giant serpent. Their rivalry was described as an apt allusion to the appearance of the system and its stellar wind. Remember that Satan is supposed to be the god of the prince of the power of the air, or an Aquarius, Gemini, Libra. So in infrared as a star embattled with a dragon's coils. In the XMM Newton serendipitous source catalog 2XMM, a star catalog of X-ray sources observed by the XMM Newton Space Telescope, the system is cataloged as 2XMM J16005.7, also known as WR7016. It is a triple star system containing the Wolf-Rayet binary described as the central engine orbiting with a period of 100 years, and a third hot supergiant star described as the Northern Companion orbiting the central engine at a distance of negative 1700 astronomical units and a period of negative 10,000 years. Greater than 10,000 years. The binary at the center of Apep is composed of two classical Wolf-Rayet stars of carbon, WC8, and nitrogen sequence, WN46b, subtypes, making Apep the strongest case of a classical WR plus WR binary system in the Milky Way. Carbon sequence Wolf-Rayet stars are often dust-making factories. A vast complex of stellar wind and cosmic dust surrounds the system, resembling WR-104. Now, if you've been listening to what I've been reading, there was, 104 judges. Gosh, I just read it. I'll find it later. But yeah, there was 104 judges that either were murdered by some evil king or something like that. And another Wolf-Rayet star system producing a pinwheel nebula. The wind traveling at a velocity of 12 million kilometers per hour or 7.5 million miles per hour, and dust traveling at 2 million kilometers per hour or 1.2 million miles per hour at the edge of the system suggests that at least one component of the central engine is rapidly rotating, in which its surface gravity is close to being balanced by its centrifugal force outwards. This component produces faster stellar winds from its poles and slower winds from its equator, and the equatorial wind's interaction with the wind of its secondary produces the system's pinwheel shape. Rapidly rotating Wolf-Rayet stars are theoretically capable of producing a gamma-ray burst during a supernova, and the system has been identified as a progenitor for a gamma-ray burst. Apep is estimated to be at a distance of negative 2.4 kiloparsecs or minus 8,000 light years from Earth, with a potential discrepancy of plus 0.2 and negative 0.5 kiloparsecs at its estimated visual extinction of 11.4. Now, let's see. Okay, so let's see, which part of North America would be considered the underworld? Okay, so this is a list of mythological places which appear in mythological tales, folklore, and various religious texts. Aru, the heavenly paradise, often referred to as sorry about that. So Aru, Aaru, is the heavenly paradise, often referred to as the field of reeds, is an underworld realm where Osiris rules in ancient Egyptian mythology. Now, where are reeds in North America? So common reed is a perennial grass species that is distributed throughout the United States. Found in wet areas, this species is known to grow along marshes, streams, rivers, lakes, and roadsides. It is able to grow in tidal areas and is tolerant of moderate salinity levels. Hmm. Okay, let's see. It says it is an invasive species. The non-native Phragmites, australis, or common reed can rapidly form dense strands of stems which crowd out or shade native vegetation in inland and estuary wetland areas. Phragmites turns rich habitats into monocultures devoid of the diversity needed to support a thriving ecosystem. Non-native phragmites can alter habitats by changing marsh hydrology decreasing salinity in brackish wetlands, changing local topography, increasing fire potential, and outcompeting plants both above and below ground. These habitat changes threaten the wildlife that depend on those wetland areas for survival. Common reed Phragmites australis is the Poaceae or grass family. There are at least 3 lineages or strains of common reeds in the U.S. At least one is native to the U.S., including the one that was most common in New York. Now, we just got through talking about New York and how Apophis could sit in the middle of it. So another common reed strain, P. australis var. Berlandier or Berlanderi, may or may not be native to the U.S. and is found in California, of course, the city of Los Angeles, along the Gulf Coast. Now, in the Bible, it tells you, God said that there will be a great gulf fixed and in the southeast. So, one strain is non-native and was accidentally introduced from Europe in the late 18th or early 19th century in ship ballast. This non-native strain is now the most common Phragmites found in New York and the Northeast. There is no field evidence that the non-native will hybridize with the native Phragmites at this time. The non-native Phragmites is a perennial grass that can reach over 15 feet in height. It is often found in dense clonal stands made up of living stems and standing dead stems. Stems of the non-native Phragmites are hollow, usually green and yellow nodes during the growing season and yellow when dry in the winter. Phragmites leaves are blue-green to yellow-green, up to 20 inches long and 1 to 1.5 inches wide at their widest point. They are arranged all along one side of a stem. In late July and August, Phragmites is in bloom with purple to gold, highly branched panicles of flowers. The seeds are grayish and appear fluffy due to the silky hairs that cover each seed. Spread occurs through rhizomes, stolones, and seeds. Stolones can grow up to 43 feet from the parent plant. Okay, so now we're going to see where has it been said that you can enter the underworld in North America. Come on, stop playing with me, phone. Alrighty, guys. Here we go. The gates of hell. The gates of hell are various places on the surface of the world that have acquired a legendary reputation for being entrances to the underworld. Often they are found in regions of unusual geological activity, particularly volcanic areas, or sometimes at lakes, caves, or mountains. Lake Avernus. Hold on, let me get some water. All right. So Lake Avernus, Italian Lago di Averno. This is a volcanic crater lake located in the Avernus crater in the Campania region of southern Italy, around 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles west of Pozzuoli, It is near the volcanic field known as the Phlegraean Fields or Campi Phlegrae and comprises part of the wider Campanian volcanic arc. The lake is roughly circular, measuring 2 kilometers, 1¼ mile in circumference, and 60 meters or 200 feet deep. The Roman era, got the water, that I'm drinking. Avernus was of major importance to the Romans, who considered it to be the entrance to Hades. Roman writers often use the name as a synonym for the underworld. In Virgil's Aeneid descends to the underworld through a cave near the lake. In Hyginus' Fabulae, Odysseus also goes to the lower world from this spot where he meets Elpenor, his comrade who went missing at Circe's palace. Despite the alleged dangers of the lake, the Romans were happy to settle its shores, on which villas and vineyards were established. The lake's personification, the Jeu Avernus, was worshipped in lakeside temples. A large bathhouse was built on the eastern shore of the lake. It's giving East Chicago. In 37 BCE, the Roman general Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa converted the lake into a naval base named the Portus Julius after Octavian. It was linked by a canal street downtown, to a nearby lake, Lucrinus Lacus, and from there to the sea. The lake shore was also connected to the Greek colony of Cumae by an underground passage known as Cosio's Cave, Grata de Cosio, which was 1 kilometer or 0.6 miles long and wide enough to be used by chariots. This was the world's first major road tunnel. It remained usable until as recently as the 1940s. The Bourboni, the Naples ruling members of the House of Bourbon, owned the lake until 1750, when they ceded it to another aristocratic family, who in turn sold it in 1991 to the Cardillo family. In 2010, a 55-hectare or 140-acre tract of land, including the lake, a lakefront restaurant, B&B, and disco, was seized by the police after the owner was accused of being a mafia frontman for the Castellisi. In the pre-modern era, Italian geographers also called Lago of Berno the Lago di Tripergola. It was named after the nearby village of Tripergola, which was destroyed by a volcanic eruption in 1538. That still didn't give me, oh, I clicked on it. That's fine. Okay, Gates in Greco-Roman world. Legends from both ancient Greece and Rome record stories of mortals who entered or were abducted into the netherworld through such gates. Aeneas visited the underworld, entering through a cave at the edge of Lake Avernus on the Bay of Naples. Hercules entered the underworld from this same spot. In the middle of the Roman Forum is another entrance, Lacus Curtius, where, according to legend, a Roman soldier named Curtius bravely rode his horse into the entrance in a successful effort to close it, although both he and his horse perished in the deed. Lerna Lake was one of the entrances to the underworld. Odysseus visited the underworld entering through river Acheron in northwest Greece. Orpheus traveled to the Greek underworld in search of Eurydice by entering a cave at Ternium or Cape Teneron on the southern tip of the Peloponnese. Pluto's gate, Plutonian in Greek, plutonium in Latin, in modern-day Turkey, unearthed by Italian archaeologists, is said to be the entry gate to the underworld. It is linked to the Greco-Roman mythology and tradition. Rivers Cocytus led Phlegethon and Styx were also entrances to the underworld. The god Hades kidnapped the goddess Persephone from a field in Sicily and led her to the underworld through a cleft in the earth so he could marry her, who lived in the clefts of the rocks. Okay. Into the medieval period, Mount Etna on Sicily was considered to be an entryway to hell. The gates of hell were commonly depicted as jaws, forming the hell mouth, which was simultaneously the entrance to hell and the mouth of a huge monster. In art, August Rodin was commissioned to make a pair of bronze doors to symbolize the gates of hell. He received the commission on August 20th, 1880, remember 88 being the number for time travel, for a new art museum in Paris to exhibit at the 1889 Exposition Universal, which ultimately did not open. However, in 1900, some of them were part of his first solo exhibition in Paris. Rodin spent 7 years making the doors with over 200 figures appearing on it, 200 fallen angels. He was first inspired by Dante's Inferno, but focused more on universal human emotions. During his lifetime, the model was never cast, and it was first cast in 1925. The Gates of Hell was described as one of the defining works of Rodin, having hoped to exhibit his gates at the 1889 Exposition Universal, but probably too busy to finish them. The sculptor stopped working on them circa 1890. So we have Rodin's sculpture at Stanford University in California. Okay, we're going to have to check that out. In China, Fengdu has a long history in the Taoist tradition of being a portal to hell. In Derwe's Turkmenistan, a burning natural gas fire in the middle of Karakum Desert is known as the door to hell, or Darvaza gas crater. According to Hawaiian folklore, Waipio or Pio Valley contains an entrance to the lower world, Lua o Milu, which is now concealed with sand. Pelham Township near York, Pennsylvania, is the subject of a modern urban legend claiming that it contains the 7 gates of hell. And there we go. All right. Okay, so in religious context, in 1878, Reverend Thomas DeWitt Talmage delivered a widely reprinted sermon titled The Gates of Hell at the Brooklyn Tabernacle, based on the scripture Matthew 16:18, message by Jesus to Peter. On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Talmage's gates were metaphorical, including infamous literature, dissolute dance, indiscreet apparel, and alcoholic beverage. In ancient Indian Hindu tradition, the Orion constellation, where the vernal equinox is stated to occur, the Milky Way and the Canis were considered to form the border between Devaloka, or heaven, and Yamaloka, hell. The Milky Way forming the dividing river between heaven and hell, and the Canis Major and Canis Minor representing dogs that guarded the gates of hell. In popular culture, in August 2010, the History Channel premiered a show entitled The Gates of Hell, Season 1, Episode 105, which visited caves and volcanoes in Nicaragua, Belize, Greece, Iceland, Ireland, and Ethiopia to examine the origins of these myths. It featured archaeologists, scholars, explorers, and others working in the field. The September 2012 edition of Weird NJ, or New Jersey Magazine, describes a large tunnel referred to by urban legends, the Gates of Hell. 741. frequency. So sorry about that. Referred to by urban legends as the gates of hell, it is a storm drain in Clifton, New Jersey. The February 2016 edition of Weird Ohio magazine describes a similar sewer system referred to as the Gates of Hell or the Blood Bowl in the High Street area of Columbus, Ohio. Very, 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 very interesting. Okay, so I don't know what I want to read first. Let's go to... Okay, let's see where the Orion, where is the Orion constellation said to occur in North America? Where is sorry, where is the constellation Orion said to occur in North America? One second. It's not telling me. Okay, when can you see Orion in North America? Orion is most visible in the evening sky from January to March. Okay. Cousin Pop name March. Okay. Baby Daddy born in March. Elder March from the church. Only visible in the winter months in North America. Orion and Earth are on the same side of the sun, like a planet at opposition. Orion rises shortly after sunset and shines all night long. 6 months later in June, our line of sight or arrow to Orion also includes the sun, so the constellation is lost in the glare of the daytime sky. Oh Lord, oh Lord. Okay. Okay. Um, Harriet Tubman, 744 to the world blow. Um, Follow the North Star. I mean, follow the Big Dipper. Big Dipper. They so secretive. Okay, I'm gonna just say Orion and Pennsylvania. What is the correlation between Orion's belt and Pennsylvania? So, common constellations. These are some of the common constellations that can be seen at Cherry Springs State Park. And we know who started the Israelite movement, Mr. Cherry. My sister has a best friend with the last name Cherry, and she likes to date outside her race. A lot of seed mixing madness. Okay. And I'm just the messenger. Sorry if y'all don't like me, but I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to judge. Okay? Let's get that straight. My job is not your job, so don't try to put yourself in my shoes. So, in the winter, one of the most well known constellations is Orion, the hunter, who travels across the sky from autumn through spring with his faithful dogs, Canis Major and Canis Minor. I said Major. Major. Miser. Hunting celestial animals like Lepus, the rabbit, and Taurus, the bull. Taurus is my north node, so I stay on bullshit. Okay. Shaped somewhat like an hourglass. Orion is composed of two stars and at his shoulders, two stars at his knees, and three stars making his belt, from which hangs a sword. One of the objects in Orion's sword is M42, the Great Orion Nebula, an area where stars are born. The slightly red star of Orion's shoulder is Betelgeuse, a red star that is 630 times the size of the sun and 60,000 times brighter. The most well-known constellation in the northern skies is Ursa Major, the Great Bear. Most people know it for the asterism unofficial constellation within it, the Big Dipper. The middle star of the handle is actually a double star, Mizar. Didn't I just say that? Mizar and Alcor, which can be seen with the naked eye by people with good vision. The two stars on the outside edge of the pot of the Dipper, Meroc and Dube, are known as the pointer stars because they point to Polaris in the constellation Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. Most people know it for the asterism unofficial constellation within it, the Little Dipper. Often called the North Star, Polaris is the only star that does not appear to move across the sky. This is because the Earth's axis points toward the location of Polaris in space. The summer sky is dominated by the summer triangle, which is formed by the brightest stars of three constellations. The star Altair rotates 100 times faster than the sun, and in the constellation Aquila, the eagle, which carries thunderbolts. An arrow creates the constellation Sagitta, the arrow, or Sagittarius, which is just inside the triangle. The star Deneb is 160,000 times more luminous than the sun, but since it is 2,600 light years away, it appears only as a fairly bright star. Deneb is the constellation Cygnus, the swan, which flies along the Milky Way looking for his friend Phaeton. The star Vega is a mere 25 light years from the Earth and is in the constellation Lyra, or the lyre, the musical instrument played by Orpheus, whose music was so sad that everyone wept. In the autumn, one of the most famous Greek myths is depicted in constellations that can be seen in the autumn and winter skies. Perseus, the hero, slew Medusa, creating the winged horse Pegasus. On his way home, Perseus slew Cetus, a sea monster that was about to eat Andromeda, whom he then married. The star Sigan is 2,500 times as luminous as the sun and is in the constellation Cassiopeia, the queen and mother of Andromeda. In the constellation Perseus, the star Algol drops in luminosity for several hours every 2.867 days, which is caused by a stellar eclipse. Called eclipsing double stars, Algol and a companion star rotate around each other every 2.876 days. When the dimmer companion passes between Algol and the Earth, it blocks part of the light from Algol. M31, the great galaxy in Andromeda, is visible to the eye near the back legs of the constellation Pegasus. Now, It says that at different times of the year, different parts of the world can see the full version of Orion. Here in Pennsylvania, Orion is clearly visible in the night sky from November to February. So the connection to Orion's belt, it posits that there is a correlation between the location of the three largest pyramids of the Giza pyramid complex and Orion's belt of the constellation Orion, and that this correlation was intended as such by the original builders of the Giza pyramid complex. Where are the three largest pyramids in North America? So this is a article. This article is a list of the tallest pyramids in the world, both ancient and modern. In order to qualify for inclusion, each entry must be referred to as a pyramid, not just pyramidal, pyramid shape, or in the shape of a pyramid by reliable sources, and be at least 50 meters or 160 feet tall. So ancient pyramids. We have San Francisco, California, the Trans-America Pyramid. We have Paradise, Nevada, at the Luxor Pyramid. We have Memphis, Tennessee. Here we go. Okay, Satan. So you ready or not to get this work? All right. So the shard. The shard, also referred to as the, no, that's not, that's in London. We want Trans-America. No coincidence, my aunt works for TransUnion. A tranny sent me a picture the other day. I almost died, y'all. I almost died. I damn near died. I didn't want to see that. My eyes is burnt. My brain burnt. God damn. Damn devil. Devil with titties. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Just burn the whole earth. Just scorch it. Take it down. The Transamerica Pyramid is a pyramid-shaped 48-story modernist skyscraper in San Francisco, California, United States, and the second tallest building in the San Francisco skyline, located at 600 Montgomery Street between Clay and Washington Streets in the city's financial district. It was the tallest building in San Francisco from its completion in 1972, i.e. the 27 Club backwards, until 2018 when the newly constructed Salesforce Tower surpassed its height. The building no longer houses the headquarters of the Transamerica Corporation, which moved its U.S. headquarters to Baltimore, Maryland. The building is still associated with the company by being depicted on the company's logo, designed by architect William Pereira and built by Hathaway Dinwiddie Construction Company. The building stands at 853 feet, which is 88, okay? Time travel, which is 260 meters. Again, 2 plus 6 is 8, okay? Infinity and beyond. So on completion in 1972, it was the 8th, and there's the 8 again, the 8th tallest building in the world. It is also a popular tourist site. In 2020, the building was sold to New York City investor Michael Schvo, who in 2022 hired Norman Foster to redesign the interiors and renovate the building. Paranormal. So the Transamerica building was commissioned by Transamerica CEO John or Jack R. Beckett with the claim that he wished to allow light in the street below. Built on the site of the historic Montgomery block, it has a structural height of 853 feet or 260 meters and has 48 floors of retail and office space. Construction began in 1969, the 69, of course, representing Tesla, and finished in 1972. 72 again equaling 9. So we have the 9, the Tet coat, the Saturn death coats, and all that good stuff. And was overseen by San Francisco-based contractor Dinwiddie Construction, now Hathaway Dinwiddie Construction Company. Transamerica moved its headquarters to the new building from across the street, where it had been based in a flatiron-shaped building now occupied by the Church of Scientology of San Francisco. Although the tower is no longer Transamerica Corporation headquarters, it is still associated with the company and is depicted in the company's logo. The building is evocative of San Francisco and has become one of the many symbols of the city. Designed by architect William Pereira, it faced opposition during planning and construction and was sometimes referred to by detractors as Pereira's prick. A prick? What is that? John King of the San Francisco Chronicle summed up the improved opinion of the building in 2009 as an architectural icon of the best sort, one that fits its location and gets better with age. King also wrote in 2011 that it is a uniquely memorable building, a triumph of the unexpected, unreal, and engaging all at once. It is a presence and a persona, snapping into different focus with every fresh angle, every shift in light. The Transamerica Pyramid was the tallest skyscraper west of Chicago. Okay. Surpassing the then Bank of America Center, also in San Francisco. Then you have the Bank of America Center in Atlanta. That looks like Mojo Jojo's tower. Mojo Jojo. So, surpassing the Bank of America Center in San Francisco, it was surpassed by the Aon Center in Los Angeles, and of course, 1974, sevenfold to the world blow. Y'all already know. Be careful this July 4th, y'all. Be careful. The building is thought to have been the intended target of a terrorist attack, including the hijacking of airplanes as part of the Bojinka plot, which was foiled in 1995. In 1999, Transamerica was acquired by Dutch insurance company Aegon. When the non-insurance operations of Transamerica were later sold to GE Capital, Aegon retained ownership of the building as an investment. In 2020, the building was purchased by SHVO and Douche Finance America for $650 million. In 2022, SHVO and partners hired architect Norman Foster to undertake a $250 million renovation. The Transamerica Pyramid was the tallest skyscraper in San Francisco from 1972 to 2017, when it was surpassed by the under construction Salesforce Tower. It is one of 39 San Francisco high-rises reported by the U.S. Geological Survey as potentially vulnerable to a large earthquake. How long have I been talking about an earthquake? Random earthquakes with no warning are coming, okay? Remember I said that, 7:59 on the 16th of June, okay? Timestamp. Design. The land use and zoning restrictions for the parcel limited the number of square feet of office that could be built upon the lot, which sits at the north boundary of the financial district. Now, remember, we are covering biblical places. The same biblical places coincide with the Egyptian mythology, okay? So, sits at the north boundary of the financial district. The North Star Financial District. The building is a tall four-sided pyramid with two wings to accommodate an elevator shaft on the east and a stairwell and a smoke tower on the west. Now, I was just reading about towers the other day. Let's see. Tower, tower, tower. The high place. Okay. A high place. Bama, Alabama, Bama, Obama. Okay. What was that president name? Obama. Obama. Hello. In Chicago. Okay. Let's get to it. So, singular, Bame or Bama. A high place. Simple, hilltop installations with instruments of religion. Platforms, altars, standing stones, and cairns are common, along with open courtyard shrines and sacred trees or groves. They were some of the most often seen public places of piety in the ancient Near East. They appear in the early Bronze Age at the latest. I am currently in Chicago. I am currently on the east side of Chicago. Okay. I am currently located in or near Cottage Grove, okay, which is a portal like Bohemia. Okay. All right. So they appear in the early Bronze Age at the latest. From the Hebrew Bible and from existing remains, a good idea may be formed of the appearance of such a place of worship. It was often on the hill above the town as Ramah, 1 Samuel 9 and 12 through 14. There was a stele, a matzebah, the seat of the deity, and a Asherah pole, named after the goddess Asherah, which marked the place as sacred and was itself an object of worship, often of considerable size and hewn out of solid rock or built of unhewn stones. Exodus 20 and 21. On which offerings were burnt, a cistern for water, and perhaps low stone tables for dressing victims, sometimes also called a hall masons, or a lishka for the sacrificial feast. Who y'all gonna do what to who? Please. Ancient Israelite religion was centered on these sites at festival seasons or to make or fulfill a vow. An Israelite might journey to more famous sanctuaries at a distance from home, but ordinarily offerings were made at the Bama of his own town. So every town has an Alabama pretty much, huh? Hello? Y'all hear me yet? Okay. The building of the temple at Jerusalem, which under the law of Moses had an exclusive right to offer sacrifices in Deuteronomy 2, did not stop the Bamite sacrifices until Kings Hezekiah and Josiah prescribed them. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica 11th edition, it was believed at the time, 1911, that the development of religious significance of the word took place not in land of Israel, but among the Canaanites, from whom the Israelites, in taking possession of the holy places of the land, also adopted the name. The Hebrew Bible claims that the Canaanites and Israelites were entirely distinct peoples, that their ancestor Abraham hailed from Ur rather than from Canaan, and that the Israelites migrated to the land inhabited by native Canaanites and conquered it by force. Mind you, some Mexicans were next door, the same next door neighbor where the police officer lives, that called the police on me for standing outside singing, but he's standing outside at the same time mowing grass. So what's louder, my voice or the lawnmower? Okay. Either way, they have these Mexicans over here putting up a roof, and the roof, when they put the roof on, they left a sign, and the sign had a very distinct little message on it. Hail is 104 on the timer, 10444. Okay, let's go. It's war. So the guy, see, I don't care. I know I'm being gang stalked, so I'm gonna take pictures of everything that I see. What you gonna do? I hope that you're the one If not, you are the prototype. Y'all know who I am. We'll tiptoe to the sun. Okay, so the men, they seen me taking pictures, so they had to say something to me. So he like, you wanna fly or a card or whatever? I'm like, yeah, get here. And so on the sign it said hell with a question mark. So I looked it up and I said, is there what do they do with the roof to prevent hail damage? Um, Good grief, my brain be all over the place. Let me look it up again. Let me see. My search history is off the chain. How does roofing prevent hail damage?
According to Royalty Roofing, some roofing materials, such as asphalt shingles, consist of a solid layer of material on the roof's underside. These types of roofing materials are resistant to damage from hailstones because they are solid.
Okay, so when you think about it, think about Egypt. Now, all the houses in this area are built with brick and mortar. Okay, let's see. What do you mean it's been turned off? What is asphalt?
According to Wikipedia, asphalt concrete is a composite material commonly used to surface roads, parking lots, airports, and the core of embankment dams.
Asphalt in the Bible. Stop playing with me, phone. Asphalt in the Bible. Stop playing with me. All right. So the Bible says that Noah was instructed to caulk his ark with asphalt to make it seaworthy. The second chapter of Exodus states that the basket of bulrushes or wetland plants where his mother put Moses was waterproofed with asphalt. Sealant for boats. Noah's Ark was sealed with pitch. Reed boats sealed with asphalt from thousands of years past have been found in both the Dead Sea and area in Mesopotamia. Asphalt could be used not just in boats, though, but in mortar for bricks. How is asphalt made? Hey, Daddy, want to play with me? Daddy, I want to look stuff up. Okay, glitch then. Why don't you? Go ahead and glitch. All right. How is asphalt made?
According to Unique Paving Materials, it has a few basic ingredients, including a mixture of crushed stone, gravel, sand, and a material called bitumen. Bitumen is a sticky, black byproduct of petroleum that holds the aggregate together. Asphalt is typically modified and mixed in batches at special processing plants.
Where can you find bitumen in North America? Benjamin Franklin? Are you serious? All right, y'all want to play? Okay. Where do you find bitumen? Oh, okay, I get the correlation. So Benjamin, little brother Benjamin that they sold, well, that Joseph held while his brothers went to get his father. I know y'all probably don't understand what I'm talking about, but Anyway, let's see. Bitumen in North America. So bitumen also occurs in unconsolidated sandstones known as oil sands in Alberta, Canada, and the similar tar sands in Utah. Is it Utah or Utah? Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Whew, my brain hurt now. So we're looking for petroleum deposits now. Finding the gates of hell, where your government uses to pull out demons and terrorize the communities of the chosen ones. So we have to fight our way out. But that shit's over with. We about to take over. And the enemy must die. Romeo must die. Okay, so petroleum. Why did I say I put petroleum demons? That's crazy. The demonic power of oil, it poisons the earth and corrupts good people. Petroleum spirits. I'd be all over the place, but stay with me. A petroleum spirit may refer to petrol or gasoline, a clear petroleum-derived flammable liquid that is used primarily as a fuel. Petroleum ether, liquid. Oh, I can't stand parasites. Damn evil demon bugs. Liquid hydrocarbon mixtures used chiefly as non-polar solvents, and white spirit or mineral spirits, a common organic solvent used in painting and decorating. Yeah, I keep hearing their paint. Okay. Something about Mississippi and the oil rigs, petroleum rigs. King Cooper. Y'all know, you know what's up, Coop. It is what it is, my guy. Mr. Beat, didn't you, Coop? Okay, the oil platform. An oil platform, also called an oil rig, offshore platform, oil production platform, etc., is a large structure with facilities to extract and process petroleum and natural gas that lie in rock formations beneath the seabed. Many oil platforms will also have facilities to accommodate the workers, although it is also common to have a separate accommodation platform linked by bridge to the production platform. Most commonly, oil platforms engage in activities on the continental shelf, though they can also be used in lakes, inshore waters, and inland seas. Depending on the circumstances, the platform may be fixed to the ocean floor, consist of an artificial island, or float. We all float down here. In some arrangements, the main facility may have storage facilities for the processed oil. Remote subsea wells may also be connected to a platform by flow lines and by umbilical connections. Apex, we found you. Okay. These subsea facilities may include one or more subsea wells, or manifold centers for multiple wells. Satan make my butt hurt. Offshore drilling presents environmental challenges both from the produced hydrocarbons and the materials used during the drilling operation. Controversies include the ongoing U.S. offshore drilling debate. There are many different types of facilities from which offshore drilling operations take place. These include bottom-founded drilling rigs or jack-up barges and swamp barges, combined drilling and production facilities, either bottom-founded or floating platforms, and deep-water mobile offshore drilling units or MODU, including semi-submersibles and drill ships. These are capable of operating in water depths up to 3,000 meters or 9,800 feet. In shallower waters, the mobile units are anchored to the seabed. However, in deeper water, more than 1,500 meters or 4,900 feet, the semi-submersibles or drill ships are maintained at the required drilling location using dynamic positioning. Now, why do we want to go under the water and dig holes? Hello? Who does that? What y'all doing? Oh, it's just like bad little boys, just bad kids leaving the house and just tell stuff. Remember my kids, I left my oldest two kids in the house and they took the doorknobs off all the doors and unscrewed all their toys. And I'm like, y'all ain't gonna have no toys now because I'm not putting them back together. But anyway, the history of the oil rigs. Around 1891, the first submerged oil wells were drilled from platforms built on piles in the fresh waters of the Grand Lake St. Mary's. It's always St. Mary's, isn't it? AKA Mercer County Reservoir in Ohio. The wide but shallow reservoir was built from 1837 to 1845 to provide water to the Miami and Erie Canal. Around 1896, the first submerged oil wells in saltwater were drilled in the portion of the Summerlin Field extending under the Santa Barbara Channel in California. The wells were drilled from piers extending from land out into the channel. Other notable early submerged drilling activities occurred on the Canadian side of Lake Erie since 1913 and Caddo Lake in Louisiana in the 1910s. Shortly thereafter, wells were drilled in tidal zones along the Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana. There's that Gulf again. The Goose Creek Field near Baytown, Texas is one such example. In the 1920s, drilling was done from concrete platforms in Lake Maracaibo, Venezuela. The oldest offshore well recorded in Infield's offshore database is the Bibi Aibat well, which came on stream in 1923 in Azerbaijan. Landfill was used to raise shallow portions of the Caspian Sea. To raise the shallow portions, okay? In the early 1930s, the Texas company developed the first mobile steel barges for drilling in the brackish coastal areas of the Gulf. In 1937, Pure Oil Company, now Chevron Corporation, and its partner Superior Oil Company, now part of Exxon Mobil Corporation, used a fixed platform to develop a field in 14 feet or 4.3 meters of water, 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers offshore of Calcasieu Parish, Louisiana. In 1938, Humble Oil built a mile-long wooden trestle with railway tracks into the sea at McFadden Beach on the Gulf of Mexico, placing a derrick at its end. This was later destroyed by a hurricane. Of course, it was a hurricane. In 1945, concerns for American control of its offshore oil reserves caused President Harry Truman, the Truman Show, to issue an executive order unilaterally extending American territory to the edge of its continental shelf, an act that effectively ended the 3-mile limit or freedom of the seas regime. In 1946, Magnolia Petroleum, now Exxon Mobil, drilled at a site 18 miles or 29 kilometers off the coast, erecting a platform in 18 feet or 5.5 meters of water off St. Mary Parish, Louisiana. Oh, the other thing about the roofing, fireworks. The reason they pop fireworks on July 4th, because July 4th is an omen date for the imposters, and the supposedly the vibrations from the fireworks, the noise and all of that is supposed to disrupt any incoming storm. So they basically are trying to deflect the powers of God with their man-made devices. So we're going to see just how big and bad the Chinese, Russians, whoever want to go up against the Most High, a higher usher, a higher triple A. Stop playing with us. Y'all know we here. Get ready. 6ix9ine, 369, all the time. I don't care. Whatever. Y'all know what's up. So, 1947, Superior Oil erected a drilling production platform in 20 feet, 6.1 meters of water, some 18 miles off Vermilion Parish, Louisiana. But it was Kerr-McGee Oil Industries, now part of Occidental Petroleum, as operator or partners. They popping fireworks right now, and fireworks are illegal in Chicago this July 4th. Illegal. Set both to the world blow. Big gang shit going on around here, okay? Whole lot of gang shit. I wasn't trying to be a gangbang, but y'all made me get on some gang shit because y'all want to try to kill me, sacrifice me, take my kids, turn my kids against me, and turn the whole world against me, basically. Me against the world, baby. Okay. Phillips Petroleum, ConocoPhillips, and Standalone Oil and Gas BP that completed its historic Ship Shoal Block 32 well in October 1947, months before Superior actually drilled a discovery from their Vermilion platform farther offshore. In any case, that made Kerr-McGee's well the first oil discovery drilled out of sight of land. Now, when we're reading this, we want to pay close attention to all the names included and who built what, okay? The British Monceau forts constructed during World War II are considered the direct predecessors of modern offshore platforms. Having been constructed in a very short time, they were then floated to their location and placed on the shallow bottom of the Thames and the Mersey estuary. In 1954, the first jackup oil rig was ordered by Zapata Oil. It was designed by R.G. Letourneau and featured 3 electromechanically operated lattice-type legs. Built on the shores of the Mississippi River by the Letourneau Company, it was launched in December 1955 and christened Scorpion. Pause. The Scorpion was put into operation in May 1956 off Port it is not Arkansas, but Arkansas, no K, Arkansas, Texas. It was lost in 1969. When offshore drilling moved into deeper waters up to 30 meters, 98 feet, fixed platform rigs were built until demands for drilling equipment was needed in the 30 meters or 98 feet to 120 meters or 390 feet depth of the Gulf of Mexico. The first jackup rigs began appearing from specialized offshore drilling contractors such as forerunners of Insco International. And every time I hear jackup, I think about Jack from The Shining. The first semi-submersible resulted from an unexpected observation in 1961. Blue Water Drilling Company owned and operated the 4-column submersible Blue Water Rig number 1 in the Gulf of Mexico for Shell Oil Company. As the pontoons were not sufficiently buoyant to support the weight of the rig and its consumables, it was towed between locations at a draught midway between the top of the pontoons and the underside of the deck. It was noticed that the motions at this draught were very small, and Blue Water Drilling and Shell jointly decided to try operating the rig in its floating mode. The concept of an anchored, stable, floating deep-sea platform had been designed and tested back in the 1920s by Edward Robert Armstrong for the purpose of operating aircraft with an invention known as the sea drone. The first purpose-built drilling semi-submersible ocean driller was launched in 1963, 1963 or 3691 Tesla. Since then, many semi-submersibles have been purpose designed for the drilling industry mobile offshore fleet. The first offshore drill ship was the Cuss one, developed for the MOHO project to drill into the Earth's crust. Rate of the Earth. Okay, the rate of the Mother Earth. Okay, I'm very upset. Okay, I may be smiling, I may laugh a lot still, but I'm very upset. And I have already called judgment on you guys. So just get ready. Okay, I told you get your houses in order, get your affairs in order, because a lot of people are about to be removed, annihilated. Okay, there is no coming back. There will be no reincarnation. Okay, there is nothing but fire and outer darkness. Now, let us continue. One of the world's deepest hubs is currently the Perdido in the Gulf of Mexico, floating in 2,438 meters of water. It is operated by Shell PLC and was built at a cost of $3 billion. The deepest operational platform is the Petrobras America Cascade FPSO in the Walker Ridge 249 field in 2,600 meters of water. The Walker Ridge, like skinwalkers. Main offshore basins. Notable offshore basins include the North Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, offshore Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. California in the Los Angeles Basin and Santa Barbara Channel, part of the Ventura Basin, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. The Caspian Sea, notably some major fields offshore Azerbaijan. The Campos and Santos Basins off the coast of Brazil. Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada. Several fields off West Africa, south of Nigeria, and Central Africa, west of Angola. Offshore fields in Southeast Asia and Sakhalin, Russia. Major offshore oil fields are located in the Persian Gulf, such as Safaniya, Manfa, and Marjan, which belong to Saudi Arabia and are developed by Saudi Aramco. Fields in India: Mumbai High, KG Basin, east coast of India, Tapti Field, Gujarat, India. The Baltic Sea oil and gas fields, the Taranaki Basin in New Zealand, the Kara Sea north of Siberia, the Arctic Sea off the coast of Alaska and Canada's Northwest Territories, the offshore fields in the Adriatic Sea. Particularly large examples. The Petronius platform is a compliant tower in the Gulf of Mexico. When I say Petronius, it sounds like some Harry Potter stuff. The Gulf of Mexico, modeled after the Hess Baldpate platform, which stands 2,100 feet or 640 meters above the ocean floor. It is one of the world's tallest structures. The Hibernia platform in Canada is the world's heaviest offshore platform, located on the Jeanne d'Arc Basin in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Newfoundland. The gravity-based structure, GBS, which sits on the ocean floor, is 111 meters or 364 feet high and has storage capacity for 1.3 million barrels or 210,000 meters cubed of crude oil in its 85-meter or 279-foot high caisson. The platform acts as a small concrete island with serrated outer edges designed to withstand the impact of an ice age. The GBS contains production storage tanks, and the remainder of the void space is filled with ballast, with the entire structure weighing in at 1.2 million tons. Royal Dutch Shell has developed the first floating liquefied natural gas, or FLNG, looks like fling, facility, which is situated approximately 200 kilometers off the coast of West Australia. It is the largest floating offshore facility. We all float down here. It is approximately 488 meters long and 74 meters wide, with displacement of around 600,000 tons when fully blasted. Okay. So now, all right. So the Gulf of Mexico, I think that one is one of the most important. Yeah, that one. Offshore oil and gas in the Gulf of Mexico, United States, is a major source of oil and natural gas in the United States. The western and central Gulf of Mexico, which includes offshore Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, is one of the major petroleum producing areas of the United States. Oil production from U.S. federal waters in the Gulf of Mexico reached an all-time annual high of 1.65 million barrels per day in 2017, 217 being an area code of Indiana. Oil production is expected to continue the upward trend in 2018 and 2019, based on 10 new oil fields which were planned to start production in those years. According to the Energy Information Administration, Gulf of Mexico federal offshore oil production accounts for 15% of total U.S. crude oil production, and federal offshore natural gas production in the Gulf accounts for 5% of total U.S. dry production. Major fields include Eugene Island Block 330 oil field, Atlantis oil field, and the Tiber oil field discovered 2009. Notable oil platforms include Baldpate, Bullwinkle, Mad Dog, Magnolia, Mars, Petronius, and Thunder Horse. Notable individual whales include Jack 2 and Knotty Head. I just called somebody that earlier, that's funny. The history of Gulf oil production. As technology has progressed over the years, oil companies have extended drilling and production farther and farther from shore and into deeper and deeper waters. In 1937, Superior Oil of California and Pure Oil constructed a platform just over a mile from the shore at a depth of 13 feet. A year later, Humble Oil built a mile-long wooden trestle with railway tracks into the sea at McFadden Beach on the Gulf of Mexico, placing a derrick at its end. This was later destroyed by a hurricane. A platform was installed in 100 feet of water for the first time in 1955, in 200 feet of water in 1962, and in 1,000 feet of water in 1979. By 1970, the technology existed to drill in 2,000 feet of water, and actual exploratory drilling was taking place at 1,400 feet. By 2009, more than 70% of Gulf of Mexico oil production came from wells drilled in depths greater than 1,000 feet or 300 meters, almost double from the percentage 10 years ago. The deepest water depth in which a discovery has been made is 9,975 feet or 30,040 meters. That's 3040 or 34, like the 34 cases that Trump just received. 304 being the number for hoe. Okay, on the telephone pad. All right. And that is at the Laurel Ridge, or the 370 diamond, 37 being a number for the God body, or 3773. 773, 3 points in Chicago. Let's go. The federal government has not allowed drilling in federal waters in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, which includes offshore Florida and part of offshore Alabama, since 1955. In March 2010, President Barack Obama announced plans to allow drilling in the eastern Gulf of Mexico in federal waters greater than 125 miles or 201 kilometers from the coast of Alabama and Florida. In December 2010, following the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, The Obama administration reversed its plans to open the Eastern Gulf and imposed a moratorium on new drilling in the Eastern Gulf of Mexico for at least 7 years. In April 2016, the U.S. Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, BC, issued final well control regulations to improve the effectiveness of offshore safety. In November 2021, the Department of Interior's Bureau of Ocean Emergency Management made available for auction for the purpose of oil and gas production. Oh my God. Oh. About 80.9 million acres in federal lands located offshore in the Gulf of Mexico. These 80 million acres of available tracts represented the largest ever lease of oil and gas drilling leases, my mom's name, in the United States. Of the 80 million acres up for auction, 1.7 million acres of drilling rights sold. The sales generated about 191 million in revenue for the government. Chevron was the largest buyer, spending 47.1 million, 1.174 being the devil's frequency, or Lucifer's frequency, followed by Anadarko, BP, Royal Dutch Shell, and Exxon. Exxon's spending of 14.9 million represented the largest sale by acreage, including 94 shallow water tracts. For context, in January 2021, the new administration in the United States paused most new oil and gas leases on federal land. In response, a federal court in Louisiana issued an order in June 2021 that prompted the Biden administration to conduct the auction, but it was later determined that the order did not require the auction to be held. The timing was such that the auction was held about a week after the conclusion of a group of worldwide environmental talks known as COP26, Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill began on 4/20, the incense holiday, in 2010 when an explosion struck the rig. It occurred in the Gulf of Mexico on the BP-operated Macondo prospect, killing 11 people. It is considered the largest marine oil spill in the history of the petroleum industry, and sources estimated that between 134 to 206 million gallons of oil was released into the Gulf. This oil spill was larger than the second largest oil spill at Ixtoc the first, Ixtoc 1, which released 140 million gallons of crude oil into the Bay of Campeche. In 2012, federal leases in the Gulf of Mexico produced 463 million barrels, or 73.6 times 10 to the 6 meter cubed of oil, whatever, which made up 19.5% of all U.S. oil production that year, and more than that of any U.S. state other than Texas. The 2012 production was less than the 570 million barrels in 2009. However, due to new deep water discoveries, the U.S. Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, Regulation, and Enforcement projects that oil production from the Gulf of Mexico will increase to 686 million barrels per year by 2013. Okay, that's enough of that. Now, let's see what's the definition of oil. What is oil?
According to Wikipedia, a sample of petroleum pump jack pumping an oil well near Lubbock, Texas, U.S. an oil refinery in Ahmadi Governorate in Kuwait. Petroleum or crude oil, also referred to as simply oil, is a naturally occurring yellowish-black liquid mixture of mainly hydrocarbons, and is found in geological formations.
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Okay. So back to APEC. So we have, what did it just say? So we have the high places, we have the pyramids, um, goodness gracious. Okay, let's talk about the plumed serpent. Okay. The plumed serpent is a political novel by D.H. Lawrence. Lawrence conceived the idea for the novel while visiting Mexico in 1923, and its themes reflect his experiences there. The novel was first published by Martin Secker's firm in the United Kingdom and Alfred A. Knopf in the United States. An early draft was published as Quetzalcoatl by Black Swan Books in 1995. The novel's plot concerns Kate Leslie, an Irish tourist who visits Mexico after the Mexican Revolution. She encounters Don Cipriano, a Mexican general who supports a religious movement, the Men of Quetzalcoatl, founded by his friend Don Ramon Carrasco. Within this movement, Cipriano is identified with Huitzilopochtli and Ramon with Quetzalcoatl. Kate eventually agrees to marry Cipriano while the Men of Quetzalcoatl, with the help of a new president, bring about an end to Christianity in Mexico, replacing it with pagan Quetzalcoatl worship. The novel received a varied reception. Novelists such as British writer E.M. Forster considered it Lawrence's best literary work. Literary critics have different opinions about its literary merit. Some have found it inferior to his other work, but others have considered it his greatest accomplishment as a novelist. An assessment shared by Lawrence himself, the novel received attention in Mexico, where its reception was positive, and it was praised by the Nobel laureate Octavio Paz. The Plumed Serpent has been compared to other works by Lawrence, such as the novels Kangaroo, 1923, and Lady Chatterley's Lover, 1928, and the essays Sketches of Etruscan Places and Other Italian Essays, 1932, as well as to the work of the poet T.S. Eliot. Some commentators have characterized it as fascist and as an attack on Christianity, and others have discussed the supposed belief of women's submission to men that is allegedly present in the novel. It has also been interpreted as an expression of Lawrence's personal political ambition and as having homoerotic aspects. Okay, now, all right, y'all know what month it is, okay? Hello, let's go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, G, B, T, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, X, A. I am so hungry right now, but I'm gonna finish this. Shortly after Easter, a group of tourists visiting Mexico, including Kate Leslie, an Irish woman, and her cousin Owen Rise, an American, attend a bullfight in Mexico City. Leslie is thrilled at the prospect of witnessing the fight, but later leaves in disgust after witnessing the violence suffered by a horse and a bull. As she leaves, she encounters Don Cipriano, a Mexican general, and invites him to meet her. Now, as you know, we are currently facing a problem at the borders with, look, it's 144 on the live stream. 14411. What's the info? What's 411, Mary Jane? Okay. Who are these imposters that are being let on the land by this bad Dan? Okay. By Dan. Sounds like a bisexual Danite. Okay. Although he has a white face, now we have to understand that the enemy is a shapeshifter. Okay. He's a skinwalker. He's just a creature of many faces. Okay. Wears many, many masks. Okay. a possessor of souls. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. So, Mexicans, yes, we're racist. No, we don't want y'all on our land. No, we don't want the people in the government on our land. Okay? This is Pocahontas, Mary Magdalene, the mother goddess Eve, Shia, fire, coming with the sword of my mouth, bringing down fire from heaven. Okay? I know y'all wasn't ready, but you want to hear it? Here you go. So, Leslie listens to discussions of changes brought about by the Mexican Revolution and encounters a major law who states that there is a rumor that the recently elected Mexican President Socrates Tomas Montes of the Labor Party will be prevented from taking office by the military. She also meets Cipriano's friend Don Ramon Carrasco, who soon afterwards she reads a newspaper report, The Gods of Antiquity Return to Mexico, describing an incident in the village of Sayula in which a man arose from a lake, then announced to a group of women that the Aztec gods Quetzalcoatl and Tlaloc are ready to return to Mexico. Y'all ready for this? What was that movie called? Apocalypto. Yay. Rice returns to the United States, but Leslie decides to stay in Mexico. Wanting to leave Mexico City because of rising social tensions, she travels to Sayula with the encouragement of Cipriano. She learns of a religious movement, the Men of Quetzalcoatl, and upon making inquiries about it, is told that it was founded by Ramon, who is suspected of having political ambitions. Leslie begins to sympathize with Ramon, believing him to be a great man. Receiving an invitation from Ramon, she meets him and his wife, Doña Carlotta, who tells her that he wants to be worshipped as a god and to destroy the belief of Mexicans in both Jesus and the Virgin Mary, objectives she deplores. Cipriano tells Leslie that he wants to marry her and make her a goddess in a pantheon of deities alongside himself and Ramon, explaining that this will help Ramon. Leslie at first rejects these proposals and considers leaving Mexico. Meanwhile, the unpopular actions of the new president provoke a rebellion and the church moves against Ramon, denouncing him as the Antichrist. Cipriano continues to support Ramon despite being obliged to defend the Mexican government. Ramon tries to remain politically neutral. Cipriano arranges a meeting between Ramon and a bishop. Ramon tells Cipriano that every people in the world needs its own savior and that the Teutonic world should return to the worship of Thor and Wotan or Wodan, Odin, just as other nations should return to the worship of their ancient gods. Whew. When Ramon and Cipriano meet the bishop, Ramon suggests to him that the Catholic Church should embrace all gods, including Quetzalcoatl. The bishop rejects this. Ramon tells the bishop that he intends to remove images from a church in Sayula, burn them, and replace them with the images of Quetzalcoatl. The bishop warns him against this, but Ramon remains firm in his plans and tells the bishop to advise his superiors of them. Ramon tries to encourage Kate to marry Cipriano, but she still has doubts. He tells her of the dissatisfying nature of his relationship with Carlotta, saying that the two of them never met in our souls, and that her faith in Jesus and his role in the Men of Quetzalcoatl now makes this impossible. He explains to Kate that for him, Quetzalcoatl is a symbol of the best a man can be. Soon afterwards, a priest is attacked after preaching a sermon against Ramon and Quetzalcoatl and later threatened with death. Priests denounce the Men of Quetzalcoatl. The church in Sayula is closed and later entered by Ramon and a group of his followers, who remove images of Jesus, Mary, and several saints. The images are taken away and burned. These events are followed by further incidents of violence and unrest. Kate travels to Jamiltepec, where she meets Ramon and tells him that she approves of the removal of images from the church in Sayula. He encourages her to support his movement. When an attempt is made to assassinate Ramon, Kate becomes involved in the conflict, and he afterwards credits her intervention with saving his life. One of Ramon's followers tells Kate that priests and the Knights of Cortez are to blame for the attack. Cortez Gardner. Okay. Kate meets Ramon and Cipriano. Ramon tells her that just as he will be identified with Quetzalcoatl, Cipriano will be identified with Huitzilopochtli. Kate accepts Cipriano as Huitzilopochtli. I know I'm probably jacking that up. And they are married by Ramon. Afterwards, Kate returns to Sayula, where she learns that the church has been turned into a temple of Quetzalcoatl. A religious meeting presided over by Ramon and Cipriano is interrupted by Carlotta, who calls on God to take Ramon's life. Carlotta collapses and is taken to bed. She subsequently dies. Worship of Quetzalcoatl continues to spread through Mexico. Cipriano wants the president to declare it the official religion of Mexico, but Ramon disagrees, believing that it should be allowed to spread of its own accord. Cipriano gives Kate the name Malinci. Ramon later marries a young woman named Teresa. Kate tells first Teresa, then Cipriano, that she wants to leave Mexico. Later, an attempt is made to assassinate the president, and Mexico is taken to the point of religious war. In Mexico City, the men of Quetzalcoatl turn a church into a Quetzalcoatl temple. The Archbishop of Mexico is arrested before he and his followers can attempt to retake the building for the Catholic Church. Eventually, the president has the Catholic Church made illegal and orders Quetzalcoatl worship made the official religion of Mexico. All churches are closed and the Archbishop is deported. Kate and Cipriano are legally married. Ramon tells Kate to tell the Irish that they should follow their traditional gods and heroes. Kate is left conflicted about whether to leave Mexico or not. Background and publication history. In March 1923, Lawrence, accompanied by the poet Whitter Benner and Willard Johnson, visited Mexico. There, according to the biographer Brenda Maddox, the site of Aztec ruins and the lush countryside outside Mexico City gave him the idea for a book. Lawrence began writing The Plumed Serpent in May 1923. Maddox states that writing the novel was exhausting for Lawrence and that it nearly killed him. Owing to the illness he contracted upon finishing it, which he did not expect to survive. She notes that the character of Owen Rise was based on Benner and that the bullfight that occurs early in The Plumed Serpent was based on an actual bullfight Lawrence attended with Benner and Johnson. She maintained that the bullfight scene reflects the disturbing effect on Lawrence of traveling with Benner and Johnson, a homosexual couple. Hello. The Plumed Serpent was first published in 1926 by Martin Seckers firm in the United Kingdom and Alfred A. Knopf in the United States. The novel has also been published by Heinemann, Penguin Books, and Vintage Books. Lawrence wanted to call the book Quetzalcoatl after the Aztec god of that name, but Knopf insisted on the Plumed Serpent, a title Lawrence disliked. An early draft of the book, different enough to be considered a distinct work, was published as Quetzalcoatl by Black Swan Books in 1995. Critics have disagreed about the literary merit of The Plumed Serpent, some, including the novelist E.M. Forster and the writer John Middleton Murray, praising it as Lawrence's best work and others dismissing it, according to John D. Vickery. While most critics admired Lawrence's masterful descriptions, his evocation of place, and his handling of individual themes, many also criticized his humorless obsession with saving Mexico around the world. Lawrence's biographer Harry T. Moore states the plumed serpent received negative reviews from P.C. Kennedy in the New Statesman, the journalist Catherine Ann Porter in the New York Herald Tribune, and the novelist L.P. Hartley in the Saturday Review. He adds that additional negative reviews appeared in the Times Literary Supplement, which described the novel as feeble, and the Spectator, which described it as verbose. However, Moore writes that it received a more mixed assessment, discussing both its good and bad aspects. From the poet Edwin Moore in The Nation and Athenaeum, Moore himself maintained that the plumed serpent could be considered a magnificent failure, and that it was a greater achievement than the smoother work of the lesser authors celebrated at that time. He considered its first 6 chapters to be its best part, writing that they contained wonderful prose. He also noted that the novel sold well. Maddox writes that the novel received a negative review from Charles Marriott in the Manchester Guardian, who deplored its failure to produce convincing characterizations, a response similar to that of Hartley in the Saturday Review. According to Maddox, Porter considered the novel inferior to Lawrence's earlier work, Sons and Lovers, 1913, given Brokeback Mountain, and believed that the difference in quality between the two works showed the catastrophe that has overtaken Lawrence. The Plumed Serpent received a mixed review from Time, which described it as a strange, compelling state of affairs rather than a story, and wrote that it reflected the physical mysticism and preoccupation with sexual psychology of its author. So what is what am I trying to say? The medical term that is given for people who are confused about their sexual state. Okay. Confusion. Or are they actually born that way? So, Time wrote that Lawrence's work moves many profoundly, puzzles others, and revolts the squeamish. Donald Douglas wrote in The Nation that the plumed serpent contains passages of miraculous wonder and words like arrows tipped with light borrowed from the sun, and that Lawrence has all his old, infallible, and inexhaustible knowledge of woman's nature, and his Indians bear all the fascination of an alien life perfectly understood. Later assessments of the plumed serpent include those of F.B. Pinion, who considered it the most ambitious and successful of Lawrence's novels written after Women in Love. Women in Love, what? In 1920. Brett Nielsen compared the plumed serpent to Women in Love, arguing that they imagined the primitive in similar ways and that both involved the theme of an eternal conjunction between two men. He compared Ramon to Rupert Birkin, a character of Women in Love, maintaining that they had similar sexual philosophies. The critics F.R. Leavis and Harold Bloom have seen the plumed serpent as inferior to Women in Love, as well as to Lawrence's The Rainbow, 1915. Bloom compared the plumed serpent to the novelist Norman Mailer's Ancient Evenings, 1983, suggesting that it had a similar underlying motive. He has argued that Lawrence was writing as a political theorist in The Plumed Serpent, which he described as a fascist fiction. The poet Richard Aldington described the plumed serpent as curious and original. He compared it to Frederick Rolfe's novel Hadrian VII of 1904, arguing that if in both books the author imagines himself raised to a position of power, which he never had the faintest chance of attaining, in fact, on this earth. He suggested that the novel shows Lawrence's dissenting horror from the very things he is supposed to be preaching. He interpreted Cipriano and Ramon as projections of D.H. Lawrence. The writer Anthony Burgess maintained that The Plumed Serpent is the least liked of Lawrence's novels due to its lack of humor and its exploration of a theme of little interest to readers with no knowledge of the ancient Aztec gods and what they could mean to a revitalized or Laurentinized Mexico. He called its ending unconvincing. Leavis and Burgess, sounds like Beavis and Butthead, have compared the plumed serpent to kangaroo, Burgess finding the similarity to be their shared emphasis on bloodshed. Leavis maintained that unlike the rainbow and women in love, but like Aaron's rod, 1922, and kangaroo, the plumed serpent was exploratory and experimental. Though appreciating features such as its bullfight scene, he dismissed it as a bad book and the least complex of Lawrence's novels, arguing that it suffered from his single-minded concern with imagining a revival of the ancient Mexican religion. Critics have offered differing interpretations of Kate Leslie. Aldington and Burgess saw the character as a representation of Frida Lawrence, but Leavis maintained that Leslie was not a representation of Frida Lawrence. The critic Frederick Cruz argued that the character was simply an opportunity for Lawrence to present Laurentian doctrine. The plumed serpent has been criticized by feminist authors such as the philosopher Simone de Beauvoir and the activist Kate Millett. De Beauvoir compared Lawrence's view of female sexuality to that of the physician Gregorio Marañón, remembering the fact that Gregory is the name of the fallen angels. Okay, keep that in mind. She argued that The Plumed Serpent was the novel that most fully expressed Lawrence's ideal of female behavior, according to which the woman must renounce personal love and abdicate all pride and will. Who does that sound like? The devil himself. Millett described the novel as homoerotic. She considered it its consecration scene an example of the symbolically surrogate scenes of pedastry in Lawrence's novels. She suggested that the novel was deservedly neglected, criticizing Lawrence's proto-fascist tone, fondness of force, arrogance, and racial, class, and religious bigotries. She maintained that the novel showed his search for triumph in politics and other areas of life, and that it records his invention of a religion of male supremacy with its prose celebrating phallic supremacy. She described Leslie as a female impersonator. The He-Man Woman Hater Club, 904 on the clock. I got 88%. Come on, we time traveling right now. Let's go back, way back into time. The English professor Mariana Turgovnik suggested that the novel advocates women's slave-like submission to men and surrender of the drive toward orgasm, and suffered from overblown prose. She considered it like Lady Chatterley's Lover, vulnerable to Millett's criticism. Turgovnik saw The Plumed Serpent and Lawrence's story, The Woman Who Rode Away, 1925, as sharing an interest in extremes of experience, and found both similar to the work of writers such as Patel and the dramatist Antoine Artaud in their emphasis on human sacrifice. Of course. She wrote that The Plumed Serpent has been charged with proto-fascism, adding that it states its racialized thesis quite clearly at times. It posts Lawrence's views derived from theories circulating within his culture of the fall and rise of races based upon energy and power. Lawrence's fear is specifically the fear that the white race will be supplanted. She characterized it as being like Aaron's rod. part of a phase of Lawrence's career during which he was suspicious of and hostile towards women. L.D. Clark described the plumed serpent as perplexing. He suggested that the work was both open to misinterpretation and a flagrant piece of propaganda intended by Lawrence as a new gospel to mankind. He believed that it suffered from faults such as careless language, wearisome repetitions, and the confusion of practical with artistic ends. He considered its prophetic aspirations a fault as well. However, he considered the novel redeemed by Lawrence's profound sympathy with the land he was writing about and his uncanny skill at synthesizing form and setting and symbol. He argued that Lawrence was influenced by Blavatsky and that his use of bone symbolism resembled Blavatsky's in The Secret Doctrine. It was 88%. Come on, let's go. He suggested that Lawrence's interest in the symbol of the circle resulted in part from his reading of occult writers such as Blavatsky. He concluded that the novel's symbolism endowed it with peculiar brilliance. He noted that one scene involving Ramon and Cipriano had been interpreted as evidence of Lawrence's latent homosexuality, but rejected the interpretation. The cultural critic Philip Rice described the work as a novel of pagan religiosity. Rice stated that in his imaginative rehabilitation of Aztec ritual, Lawrence rightly understands sun dancing as an imitation or a dramatic representation performed in substantiation of the divine concerned with the human being. However, he saw the work as an embarrassment even to Lawrence's admirers. The critic Frank Kermode wrote that in 1928, Lawrence accepted Benner's criticism of the leadership mystique advocated in the novel. The philosopher Michael Foucault considered the plumed serpent an example of how the modern deployment of sexuality has encouraged the desire for sex, the desire to have it, to have access to it, to discover it, to liberate it, to articulate it in discourse, to formulate it in truth. The writer Henry Miller maintained that Lawrence showed great creativity in the plumed serpent, finding it apparent in the way Lawrence dealt with the eternal duality in man's nature by defining it in the form of Quetzalcoatl. He compared its themes to those of Lawrence's The Man Who Died, 1929, and praised the way in which Lawrence employed the old myth of the dragon. The novelist William S. Burroughs was influenced by the plumed serpent. The Mexican intellectual Enrique Cruz described the plumed serpent as the most fascist of Lawrence's writings, citing its deification of violence and masculine power. The critic William York Tyndall compared the plumed serpent to the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kubla Khan, Gustav Flaubert's Salammbô, and the paintings of Paul Gauguin. He called it a great novel and metaphor for a feeling about reality. Maddox compared the plumed serpent to Kangaroo, describing both novels as successors to Aaron's Rod. She also compared it to Lady Chatterley's Lover, which likewise features a man who condescendingly instructs a woman in how to be a woman, which is completely my story. Like, hello, how can a man teach a woman how to be a woman? You can't. Okay, leave it to the women. Teach the men over there. Teach the boys how to be boys. You can give a woman some tips on how to deal with a man, but let the women teach the women. Let the men teach the men. Okay? So she stated that Frida Lawrence, like D.H. Lawrence, considered it his greatest novel and shared its message, which Maddox summarized as being that Christianity was outmoded and destructive, and that the white races must find new modes of leadership to prevent the dark races from dragging them into anarchy. She observed that one scene featuring Ramon appearing before a rally evoked the Third Reich to later readers and encouraged the view that Lawrence was a fascist. She also stated that the work influenced Rolf Gardner. I just said Cortez Gardner. Oh, yeah. The cultural critic William Irwin Thompson that the novel shows that Lawrence misunderstood the religion of ancient Mexico. The English professor Louis L. Marks stated that the plumed serpent resembles the Bible in its combination of prose and poetry. Its mingling of narrative and description with songs and hymns, lyrical sermons, and eloquent authorial ruminations, along with its frequent use of occult symbols. He found the work a success so long as it is read as a novel of prophecy. However, he found the published version of The Plumed Serpent in some ways inferior to the early version titled Quetzalcoatl, noting that the early version gave Leslie a more significant role. And Fernahau described the plumed serpent as stridently ideological, while Mark Kincaid Weeks described it as more ideologically elaborated and assertive than its early version, Quetzalcoatl, adding that Lawrence made a deliberate and intransigent attack on Christianity. He wrote that most reactions to it were either strongly positive or strongly negative, and stated that Lawrence later rejected both the political and the sexual ideology of the novel. Helen Swart compared The Plumed Serpent to Lady Chatterley's Lover, describing them both as novels in which Lawrence uses a woman's voice and consciousness to convey the message that women should submit physically and emotionally to men, while Paul Eggert described Lawrence's attempt to portray a society renovated by a new religion as pretentious and strained. Michael Bell called The Plumed Serpent strident and desperate in its rhetoric and maintained that, like Kangaroo, it showed sympathy for political authoritarianism. And Chris Baldick has been accepted by most subsequent critics, including the philosopher Eliseo Vivas and Julian Moynihan, and has become part of a consensus. Vickery considered it unfair to reduce the novel to a political plan, arguing that Lawrence's central concern was that people were being led further and further away from the realization of their own essential nature, and that Lawrence's own views were different from those of Ramon. He considered Lawrence's approach to primitive myth and ritual in The Plumed Serpent consistent with that he later took in sketches of Etruscan places and other Italian essays, maintaining that Lawrence used the character Ramon to depict the attainment of an integrated personality. He compared the novel to the poet T.S. Eliot's poem The Wasteland, 1922, observing that both works juxtaposed past and present. Donna Persbaloix maintained that the novel revealed a conflict between contradictory fascist and liberal humanist tendencies within Lawrence's work. She compared Lawrence to Leavis and Eliot, suggesting that, like Eliot, Lawrence believed that all crisis of a capitalistic post-war society of class conflict could be transcended by ignoring history and replacing it with myth, although with the difference that Eliot's views were Christian and Lawrence's paganistic. She argued that The Plumed Serpent, by depicting the proletariat and Indian peasants as needing to be controlled by a dictatorial leader, revealed Lawrence as basically anti-democratic and anti-socialist, and that it also presented a Western stereotyped notion of the dark races as lazy, dirty, resentful, covetous, irresponsible, and aimless. She believed that Lawrence correctly portrays the crisis of Mexican society as resulting from reification and social fragmentation, but criticized him for repudiating revolutionary political change and wanting to maintain class divisions. Lydia Blanchard described the novel as puzzling and wrote that it was infrequently admired even by Lawrence admirers, with most readers finding it flawed due to its turgid language, wooden characters, and improbable plot. She observed that it had been seen as a prelude to fascism. Karen McLeod Hewitt describes the novel as unpleasant nonsense, writing that most of it celebrated a disgust for people, which is also pretentious. However, she praised the brief passages in which Leslie's reactions to the cruelties of Mexico were dramatized with passion and showed respect for the character. David Carroll maintained that compared to its early version, Quetzalcoatl, the novel's published version, showed more intimate knowledge of Mexican culture and explored the confrontation of white and red consciousness with greater complexity. Jad Smith wrote that the plumed serpent is often regarded as the height of Lawrence's interest in authoritarian politics and was a notorious instance of Lawrence's proto-fascist leanings. However, he noted that Lawrence subsequently wrote letters, including one to Benner, that appeared to repudiate his leadership vision. He argued that they did not represent a change in Lawrence's views and stressed that Lawrence did not necessarily endorse fascist politics despite the presence of proto-fascist ideologies in the novel and its racism. He also argued that it reflected Lawrence's familiarity with German thought and culture. Dwayne Edwards described the novel as Lawrence's most profound expression of what the human psyche is and suggested that it prepared the way for Lawrence's later novel, Lady Chatterley's Lover. He maintained that it was disturbing because it makes readers aware of their primitive, pre-conscious self, which connects them with their most ancient ancestors. He observed that the novel had received a more negative response than any other work by Lawrence, finding it surprising that it had so many detractors. He disputed the characterization of the work as racist and fascist, maintaining that Lawrence's views should not be confused with those of his characters, Cipriano and Ramon. Julianne Newmark compared the novel to Willa Cather's The Professor's House, 1925, arguing that both were inspired by engagement with evocative American places, especially the high deserts and rugged expanses of the American Southwest, and are concerned with the ways place constitutes new identities. She questioned the charge that the plumed serpent is racist and that Lawrence's views resembled those of white supremacy. Damian Barlow wrote that a queer approach to reading Lawrence's modernist fiction has been proposed. Armando Pereira maintained that the novel reflected Lawrence's desire to live in a creative way and free of the oppressive rationality, anxiety of technique, and obsession of progress that has swallowed Europe up. Nora Marissa Leon Real Mendez, a long-ass name, argued that Lawrence confers significant meaning to the landmarks, constructing a narrative space that is particular as well as linked to the Mexico outside the text. Camelia Raganaru argued that there was a connection between Lawrence's interest in the Kabbalah, which may have developed from his reading early in the 20th century of the occultist and founder of the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky, and his development of a messianic utopia. There is no utopia in The Plumed Serpent. She saw the novel as dealing with magical and mystical secrets whose purpose is to enact a messianic eschatology, and believed that it revealed Lawrence's preoccupation with femininity and its mystical significance. She wrote that Lawrence saw the plumed serpent as a magical incantation intended to change the world. She interpreted the novel in terms of the philosopher Julia Kristeva's emphasis on abjection in Powers of Horror, 1980, and maintained that it emphasized male sexuality and female submission. Luis Gomez Romero compared the novel to Kangaroo, writing that in both works, Lawrence exposes the advent of discrete crises resulting from the failure of human ideals and institutions to prevent and tame violence. He noted that critics had often regarded the work as a direct expression of Lawrence's proto-fascist propensities. He questioned the view that its plot had little to do with the actual Mexican politics, arguing that it should be viewed in a specifically Mexican context. He also observed that the early reception of the plumed serpent in Mexico was positive, citing the news of the newspaper Excelsior and the poet Bernardo Ortiz de Montellano, who both credited Lawrence with understanding Mexico and the Mexicans. He also noted the similar appreciative views of the intellectual Antonio Castro Leal and the poet Octavio Paz. However, he stated that Mexican post-revolutionary nationalism and the rise of post-colonial studies later displaced such positive views of the novel in Mexico. He noted the poet Jose Juan Tablada's accusation of plagiarism against Lawrence, but discounted it, writing that the plumed serpent had little in common with Tablada's La Resurrección de los Ídolos in 1924. Vladimiro Rives Iturralde maintained that Lawrence wrote about the transformation of man and myth in an improbable way, and that the plumed serpent was an artistic failure. Deborah A. Castillo compared the novel to the anthropologist Tobias Scheinbaum's Keep the River on Your Right, 1969, and the work of the intellectual George Borges Batil. She maintained that it stands out among the hundreds of novels and stories written by Anglo-Americans and set in Mexico for the particular forcefulness of Lawrence's obsession with and equally forceful rejection of that country and its people. She considered the work racist and deemed it unsurprising that Lawrence considered it his best novel, arguing that he did so because he found Mexico, as a foreign society, an ideal subject on which to project his personal obsessions. Nevertheless, she believed that the novel contained valuable insights into the state of Mexico after the Mexican Revolution. She noted that of those Mexican writers who had discussed the novel, the poet Jose Emilio Pacheco warned against its proto-fascism, while Paz praised its depiction of landscape. David Barnes noted that while Lawrence regarded the novel as his most important, he made little reference to it after its publication, and that it is usually held that he later rejected its themes for new concerns in the late 1920s, expressed in works such as Lady Chatterley's Lover. He criticized the novel's misogyny, authoritarian politics, and racial essentialism, but nevertheless saw it as part of an important political debate about what forms of nationhood might emerge in the 1920s, and showed awareness of the possibilities of nation as utopian community. He maintained that while Benner's negative judgment of the novel expressed in his memoir, Journeys with Genius, had affected his reputation, Lawrence was more interested in Mexican revolutionary culture than Benner's comments suggested. He argued that the novel's themes were to some extent similar to those of Lady Chatterley's Lover. He also compared the novel to Kangaroo and Sketches of Etruscan Places and other Italian essays. Shirley Brickett argued that episodes in a novel such as the bullfight scene depict rights that both act as catalyzers of emotions and travesty these emotions as a submissive but passionate response. She compared the novel to Kangaroo. Juliette Fayol, describing them as Lawrence's most explicitly political novels, she compared both works to Civilization and Its Discontent, 1930, by Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, maintaining that Lawrence and Freud both correlate individual neuroses with civilization. So it's 2 hours, 24 minutes, and I am starving. So I'm going to end it here. I'm going to bring it back with more on the high places and the plumed serpent. How this all goes into what this month represents for the people that like to use my rainbow for evil. Okay. I'm going to need that back. Okay. I'm going to need my bow back. All right. So I love you all that love me. I don't love everyone. Those of you that love me, I love you right back. I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Shalom, shalom.